Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzales. Happy Monday, gentlemen. We have a special guest here today, Mr. Mike Broomhead, radio host Mike Broomhead.
Good to be here.
Yay.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. How about you?
Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Mike is a good friend of mine from Phoenix, Arizona. KFYI does mornings and is like the most important celebrity in all of Arizona.
Wow.
I don't know if that's a well, there's not many celebrities in Arizona, so I might be, since he left.
Glenn, what's the top story for you?
I think the death cult, the Democratic death cult.
Always uplifting.
Yeah, always
Monday.
happy. Hey, I spent the weekend with Tony Robbins. How can you not be happy and uplifting?
Stu.
Some answers to questions I have not seen asked about the New Zealand shooting.
All right, Mike.
I'm going to educate you on the Red for Ed movement across the country, especially in Arizona.
Can I ask a question? What was your topic again?
The New Zealand shooting.
And it was questions not asked?
Yeah.
Here's one. Is Peter Jackson okay?
He is, Peter.
Okay, good.
Peter's okay.
I didn't hear anybody ask that question.
You didn't.
No,
You ruined my segment. Now I have nothing.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You got to.
Spoiler alert.
Obviously, a lot to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Mercury Real Estate.
Okay, so this is realestateagentsitrust.com. This was started by me and my brother, and he's not actually my brother. I don't want to get trouble with false advertising. We grew up together, and we've worked together forever, and we've always thought there's got to be a better way because we both were in radio. And we'd move a ton, and I hated moving, mainly because of the real estate agents. You never know who to hire. You never know who's going to do it right.
Well, you hired the one on the billboard, right?
Yeah, no.
Smiling face.
No, my mistake is I hired, my cousin, my friend has a cousin who, don't do it. Don't do it. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com. These are the experts. These are the people hand-selected by my team to be able to be the ones that you can trust, ones that have your same sensibilities. There is nothing worse than getting into a car all day long with a real estate agent who thinks you're a liberal and is just talking about crazy crap all day, and you're just like, just get me out of the car. Won't happen with realestateagentsitrust.com. Go there now, sell your house on time and for the most amount of money, or buy the right house the first time if you're moving into a new area. It's realestateagentsitrust.com.
Glenn, you said the Democrat Party is a death cult.
Well, if anybody had said what Beto
His name is Robert Francis.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Robert Francis O'Rourke. He should really be Father Robert Francis.
Father Robert.
Yeah, doesn't he?
RFO, UFO, but RFO.
Thank
Father
you.
Bob Frank.
So, he wrote, do we have any of the clips of the things that he wrote about how he likes to kill children? Now, this is when he was a child. So he was in high school, and one day I was driving home from work. I noticed two children crossing the street. They were happy to be free from their troubles. The happiness was mine by right. I had earned it in my dreams. As I neared the young ones, I put all my weight on my right foot, keeping the accelerator pedal on the floor till I heard the crashing of the two children on the hood and the sharp cry of pain from one of the two. I was so fascinated for a moment that after I had stopped my vehicle, I just sat a day, sweet visions filling my head. This is nuts. And this is something that if anyone else would have written it, you would have gone to the parent and said, I think something's wrong. Remember the kid who killed the llamas when we were in Tampa?
Yes.
He took a golf club to a llama and killed him for sport. And the whole thing was, this kid's got to go away because there's something seriously wrong with him. Now, this isn't a llama, but this is some sign that there's something wrong. He then later wrote about talking about a country that we have to get rid of all money, and we're going to have government, but we need the anarchists to help us on this. Because the banks aren't going to let go. A lot of spooky stuff that is kind of in line with a lot of the anarchists and the revolutionaries that are in our midst right now. I had Joe Lieberman on today, and I asked him, is any of this stuff scare you? I mean, are people going to stand up? And he said that the people he knows in the Democratic Party are too afraid of the left and the people in control to actually stand up. He said it's going to take the Democrats themselves, the one in the country, to stand up and say, we don't want any of this. And he said if they happen to nominate one of these crazies, he said, I think it will be the end of the Democratic Party. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Before we go any further, I just want to make something clear. Are you saying that as a teenager, you did not fantasize about killing kids?
No, I didn't.
Didn't go through that phase.
No, did you?
I did not.
Yeah, did you, Stu?
I don't remember this particular phase.
Do you remember that?
No, you don't want to know what I did, but I did. That wasn't it.
I mean, boys have fantasies, but not usually about killing kids.
Well, I mean, you couple that with Bernie's, what Bernie wrote when he was younger, too. What is wrong with them?
These people have, they don't mind death. They really don't. I think it's turning into a death cult.
New York, when they passed the bill for infanticide, it wasn't just they passed it, they lit the buildings in New York pink to celebrate it.
Right.
They're celebrating the death of children.
And they still won't stand up and say, no, we don't want to kill infants. This goes back to the denying God 3 times back in, 2012, when they were developing the Democratic platform. Everybody who wants God in the platform, say aye. They denied 3 times this death cult. It's only going to get worse. You're seeing it now with Omar. That's the end of anti-Semitism. It's ovens.
Stu, you want to weigh in?
There's, we've kind of turned a corner when it comes to the campaign, and you notice it with Beto, and that, he ran against Ted Cruz, and no one could ever find anything wrong with the guy. I mean, he was, sure, there was a lot of information out there that he had done things that were wrong, but the media just glorified him and treated him like a celebrity that was basically perfect. Now that he's going up against other Democrats and socialism is on the line, well, now we're seeing all this stuff kind of leak out because now the media will pay attention to it. They might have a different socialist that is their favorite socialist. So now they can go after Beto and feel okay because instead of it being Beto or Ted Cruz, it's Beto or Bernie or Beto or Kamala or whoever. So that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. And you see how it's happened with with the media too. It's not just his crazy writings as a child. He was involved in this hacking group in the 80s, a relatively well-known one. Reuters reporter came across this information during the campaign, went to confirm it with him, and accepted the standard that he would be able to protect this information until after the election. And now it's come out. It was kind of under the auspices of, well, I'm writing a book about this, and I was holding back the information for a book. Although we now know about it, and I don't think the book is out yet. It seems to be just released in a normal news story. Mm-hmm. So he's had lots of protection, and it'll be interesting to see if Beto can get through this stuff because you've already seen him kind of stumble several times in this rollout, had a great fundraising first day. But, with the rollout, him apologizing for this non-joke about his wife that he didn't say anything.
I didn't think it was bad at all. I couldn't live in the world where I had to apologize for saying something like that. It'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, if you didn't hear it, what was it? It was basically like, you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I think we have him explaining what the joke was.
The joke was basically him saying, hey, I've been out on campaigning, so my wife is basically raising the kids by herself.
By herself, yeah. And then, so let's watch what he had to say about that.
Calling my wife and asking her, and she said, look, I know what you're trying to say, which is that here I am in El Paso, I'm working. I'm also taking on the lion's share of the responsibility of raising our children, and you were trying to acknowledge that in your comments, but it came off sounding a little flip. This is a serious thing, and I think you should treat it seriously. So I thought that was great advice, and
he's wearing
advice that I'm going to follow.
He is wearing a skirt.
He's handcuffed too, because there's none of the waving of the arms either.
Yeah,
so he's got that under control.
It's just awful what he's doing here. I can't even imagine having to say that about something that is not offensive.
In fact, I felt like it was giving credit where credit was due, right? And not even just not offensive.
But is that because the Democrats don't find any value of staying home and taking care of the children?
Yeah, like he was devaluing her.
Right.
I mean,
Didn't he say,
For doing the most important job in the family.
we played 5 times on our show how he emphatically said no way he's running for president, and one of the reasons was because his children were still young.
Yes.
And then makes the announcement he's running.
Oh, and in his Vanity Fair article, they made sure to comment that his son was in tears.
Yeah.
That he said, I will cry every day that you're gone. And Beto was like, oh, this guy.
Screw you, kid.
It was not cute.
I remember some of the Cruz allies during the campaign made, look-alike signs of Beto, except it was Beta. Remember those? They
Yeah.
were around here at the office. I mean, does that clip, could there possibly be a better clip to explain that? I mean, that is a pathetic moment for any dude.
And, to go back on what you were talking about of they're making fun of him, let's play the clip from what's his name?
Fallon?
Jimmy Fallon. I mean, this is tremendous comedy, which they would have never done when it was against Ted Cruz, and they will stop if he gets the nomination because then it'll be about Donald Trump. Watch.
Hi, I'm Beto O'Rourke, and I'm excited. That's it. I'm just excited. Oh yeah, I'm also running for President of the United States. I love the United States, and I love running. In fact, I literally just ran 8 miles to get here. Folks often say to me, we don't know much about you, Beto. We know you ran against Ted Cruz in Texas. We know you're hot. And then usually the hot thing comes up again. But who's the real Beto O'Rourke? Well, I'm sort of like if a compassionate head nod turned into a person. Because the truth is, I care. I care so much.
She just won't let go of his arm. That's the best part.
I love when he grabs it.
Yeah.
Her arm is like a limp noodle. All right, before we get to everything that's going on in New Zealand, let's take a quick break. We'll be back.
You think that Jimmy Fallon to shooting transition would go that well? I can see that.
That was hysterical.
Stu, New Zealand.
Yeah, so obviously late last week we had this really terrible mass shooting in New Zealand, and it was obviously a horrific moment, and we weren't really around. I wasn't around at least last week to talk about it, but I mean, this is one of these are things you wish would not happen, and the fact that anyone would go to their place of worship and get shot is just, I mean, it's inexplicable. Anyone who would do it is solely responsible and also the worst person of all.
Blah is all I hear. We all know this.
Yeah.
This drives me nuts when we talk about it, that we all have to make sure that we all say, I want you to know it's really bad. We all know that.
I want to make sure that you don't lead with, because I don't want to come off as like someone who's trying to justify or like make some dumb excuse. I mean, the bottom line is it's so ridiculously
What's
horrible.
crazy is no one in this audience thinks that, but someone who would be watching to take words out of context would.
Exactly. So a couple things I thought was interesting about the coverage about it was, first of all, we had as soon as the shooting happened, what we found is that actually New Zealand has very lax gun laws. It's very easy to get a gun in New Zealand. There's nothing going on there. It's the easiest thing in the world. Now, of course, that was not my impression. And when you look at the gun laws, you don't really find that. But simultaneously, we were told that this was the safest place on earth, and that's why it was targeted, because people felt so safe there, and they wanted to bring the message that anyone could be taken out. Right, like I thought you said when there was lax gun laws, it was unsafe. It really is kind of a back and forth sort of bizarre moment. So I decided to think, well, what is the actual truth about mass shootings in New Zealand? All we kept hearing was they haven't had a mass shooting since 1990. So they went 29 years without a mass shooting, and it just shows after the first one, they changed the laws, and they went 29 years without another mass shooting. Yet again, more evidence that the United States is doing this wrong. Of course, when you actually look at this, it gets a little bit more complicated. First of all, it's not true. They've only had one mass shooting since 1990. They've had several others. But it's a small country. There's only 4.8 million people who live there, as opposed to 327 million people who live here. So there should be more mass shootings here than there are there. When you actually look at the rate of people who die of mass shootings, it tells a very different story than what you're hearing in the media. In fact, if you are in New Zealand, you're about 4.34 times as likely to be killed in a mass shooting than you are in the United States. That is a major difference, although I think it comes with a caveat. They just had a shooting the other day. So maybe it's unfair. It's a big one. Maybe it's unfair to include that one. So let's remove the 50 people who died in the mosque shooting and look at the stats again. If you exclude that shooting, you're still 1.76 times as likely to be killed in a mass shooting in New Zealand than you are in the United States. And you say, well, you're going back to 1990. They've only had 2 mass shootings. I mean, there's 14 dead in the first one, I think 50 dead in the second one. So let's remove both of them. We'll remove the most recent one and the one from 1990, the only 2 that are mentioned. You are still 6% more likely to be killed in a mass shooting in New Zealand than you are in the United States. That is, it is a function of, a lot of times what you have with these societies that have gun laws that are more restrictive is you sometimes do get less incidents of mass shootings, but they are much worse when they happen. We saw this in Norway when that went on, where 77 people were killed. Because there's no one to push back. I mean, New Zealand has most of their police officers don't even carry guns. They're police officers. So how are you stopping these things? I mean, these are very difficult to stop. Right. What's
Sheep.
Yeah. If you throw sheep at a shooter,
You just pick up a sheep, you throw it.
you're probably your only defense.
Bull. Like, how, man? I ain't pulling a strike on that guy. You throw sheep. Or Gollum. Gollum can come.
It's an amazing thing, though. I mean, we have to understand that these people get this idea that we're having mass shootings here all the time because we have most media, and we also have a lot of people. Like, it's a very large country. Like, how many mass shootings happen in China? I don't know exactly. We know mass stabbings happen there from time to time. They're very restrictive with their gun laws. I mean, do you trade societies with China to get lower amounts? And how many are happening in the middle of rural areas where they're putting 1 million, Muslims into camps? How many deaths are happening there? We know that thousands and thousands of Christians are murdered by ISIS and in Nigeria and many other places with very little attention or coverage over here. It should be covered if someone comes into a mosque and shoots 50 people. It's a really, really bad thing. But it's also bad when these other things happen, and we have to at least have perspective. The idea to blame a New Zealand massacre on the gun laws in the United States or the president of the United States, both of those are completely absurd.
No, go ahead.
The absurdity. As we said on our show, the only thing, I don't know anything about the Australian government. I couldn't name the Australian president. Anything I know about Australia, I hear about on the news. Yeah. Anything anyone in Australia and New Zealand knows about Donald Trump, they're hearing from the American media. So if you're going to spew the narrative that it was the president that caused this, it's what you told them of the president, which is still absurd. Mm-hmm. This was a maniac that murdered people. He shot a woman from a distance, then walked up to her and at point blank range shot her. How do you rationalize, how do you blame that on rhetoric or laws? It's impossible. Yeah. I live in Arizona, the least restrictive gun laws in the country. And it's a safe place to live. You lived there for a long time. It's a safe place to live.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on to Red for Ed, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. Relief Factor has been life-changing for Glenn, I know, and life-changing for us because we can deal with Glenn.
No, wait a minute.
Is that like an official slogan now? We hear that a lot.
Yeah, I agree with the point. Glenn, you on your meds?
Flying off the shelves right now.
Yeah, right. If anybody has, blinding pain, you know how difficult life can be sometimes, and you do get a little grumpy. And my wife said to me, "You're taking this." And I'm like, "I don't know, honey, it's not going to work. Nothing works for me." I've woken up on the operating table 2 times, okay? It takes like horse tranquilizers to keep me down. It's not going to take me out of pain. She said, "Try it. For 3 weeks, that's what the commercial says." All right. I tried it. It works. It will reduce or eliminate your pain. It works on 70% of the people that try it. That's why they have a 3-week quick start. You try it for 3 weeks. If it doesn't work, you have to take it as directed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If it doesn't work, you're out $20. If it does work, you are somebody has your life back, and you can do the things that you want to do. It's Relief Factor, relieffactor.com.
All right, Mike, educate us.
We caught into this early. Red for Ed, a movement of teachers. Who doesn't think teachers need to be paid what they're worth? Educating our children. Teachers in Arizona wore red every Wednesday. They called it Red Wednesday, and it became a movement called Red for Ed. It's all over the country now. The teachers in Arizona said, we want a 20% raise over 3 years, and we are going to walk out of school. They're not allowed to strike, so they had to call in sick. There's a lot of gaming, but they walked out. So before the walkout, a week before the walkout, the governor, our governor, Doug Ducey, went to the legislature. They got together and said, okay, we can do it. We're going to give you the raise. Red Fred scrambled and said, we don't believe you, so we're going to walk out anyway. 70,000 people in red T-shirts at the state capitol at the beginning of this movement. So I started looking into it because I have a lot of friends that are teachers. It's run by some people that are socialists. Not as an accusation, as an observation. A guy named Noah Carvelis, Joe Thomas, this is Arizona. Noah Carvelis writes for socialist publications and has for a long time. They got their raise. It was in the legislature. As it progressed through the legislature, Joe Thomas and other leaders of this movement were in both legislative bodies, the House and Senate, trying to kill the very budget that was going to give the teachers the raises till the wee hours of the morning. They didn't want it to pass because they wanted a tax increase on the ballot. They couldn't kill it. It passed. The governor signed it. That morning, Joe Thomas ran out to the legislative buildings to the throngs of people and said, congratulations, you did it. It was you that got this raise passed. And never told them he had been trying to kill it the night before.
Wow.
So the movement was about a tax increase. So they came up with a bill about raising taxes on the wealthy in Arizona. They got 275,000 signatures to get it on the ballot. It was so poorly written, and the numbers of what the rate, they said it was a 6% increase. Well, no, it was not. It was a 100% increase. The state Supreme Court threw it out. When it passed, Noah Carvelis was at the National Socialist Convention and got a 45-second standing ovation for getting it passed. He wrote just recently for a publication, Noah Carvelis, writing for his lessons from Saul Alinsky. This was what he wrote for recently. He's one of the leaders of this movement in Arizona. They are coordinating with other Red for Ed movements. West Virginia recently walked out, other states, where they are trying to unionize or right-to-work states and get teachers, the American Federation of Teachers, divide districts, get teachers unioned up, and this is about tax increases and the power of that money. Completely about power and control. Thankfully, Arizona hasn't passed it. I mean, they're kind of caught on. The last press conference they had, well, 70,000 is where they started. Their last press conference, they had 9. Not 9,000. 9.
Just the 9.
So in the 50s, where a socialist wasn't running openly, and we had an idea that socialism generally ends like Venezuela, or with a bullet in your head.
Or both.
Or both. You could have never run Red for Ed.
The logo.
Is there any other reason that it's called Red other than...
Their slogan, their mascot, what would you call it, was a flag, was the socialist fist holding an apple, because they're teachers, with the Arizona flag under it. They were not hiding it at all, except they wouldn't talk about it. They were open on their Facebook page, so we started posting their messages. Then they closed their Facebook page. Well, we had people on the inside giving us their posts. So they put a message on their Facebook page that said, all members don't post questions on the page. Send them in a private message. We'll answer in a private message. They will do nothing publicly. If they're on the side of angels, if they're just trying to educate children.
Do you have anything that shows what they've been saying?
I do, and we tried to find some of them, and I will get them. I will get them to you. It is amazing the things they're saying about the movement. The most recent one we have is a video on my blog of one of our state legislators named Quezada, who was telling he agrees with the movement that this is a mental warfare, that you've got to beat them down on social media, that we will get people to vote with us if they say, just call off your dogs. So they did this in a secret meeting. I got a copy of the meeting, and we posted it online, and he took a little bit of heat, but then it just goes away. He's advocating, all these anti-bullying people advocating that teachers go after them on social media and are relentless.
I got to say, before we take a break, that is a really good investigative journalism there.
Well,
right?
it's because I have grandkids in the school system.
Yep.
And don't you think, and wherever you live, look and see if it's happening, because we all want teachers to earn a fair wage. This is more about power and control, unionization, and the money that goes with it.
All right, back in a minute.
So it's Red for Fred. It's all over.
Red for Ed.
Red for Ed.
Yeah.
Maybe Fred. Yeah, maybe Fred. Mike, before we go into overtime, tell everyone where they can find you.
KFYI.com, and then my last name is Broomhead, so they can find it on my blog. And if you scroll through, you can find all these Red Fred stories and their posts.
Yeah.
And please, because I asked him to share, so if you know of one of these stories elsewhere, please share them with Mike.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you so much for being here. You're going to stick around for overtime?
Whatever you want.
Perfect. All right, Overtime starts next for you Blaze TV subscribers. We will see you then.
Excellent. So what's overtime?